There is a brand new January horror film that just came out this past weekend, and the biggest question everybody has with a horror film coming out in January, is it crap or is it surprisingly good? Let's find out in the review. Hey, what's up guys? It is Brad from Let's Be Real Brad, and today in the channel, I want to talk to you guys about one of the craziest and most interesting horror films I have seen this year. I mean, there's not a lot of horror films that have come out this year, or movies in general, but it's definitely one of the most interesting in my book, and that is called Infinity Pool. Infinity Pool is directed by Brandon Cronenberg, as it stars Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth in the lead roles. So going into this film, when you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score and the cinema score, where the critics and the audiences are very different with this movie, and that could just be due to the trailer just misleading people of what it actually is, because this is a indie experimental crazy horror film that a lot of modern audiences may not like. But I completely get it. This is a really strange movie, but I gotta be honest with you, I really dug this movie. This is the type of horror films that I want to see in the cinema, and not just in a limited release, like a decent size wide release where tons of people can watch this movie, and just to be able to see a horror film that is really terrifying and disturbing as this movie was. So let's just dive, as we always do, into the positives, and I gotta start with the performances. Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth are excellent in this movie, and that shouldn't come as a surprise, as both these actors have been absolutely amazing last year, with Alexander Skarsgård doing The Northman and Mia Goth. I mean, what can I say about Mia Goth? Pearl, and now coming in with this movie, and she's probably gonna have Maxine come out later this year. She is on fire, and she was amazing in this movie. These two truly carry the film. I found everybody else in this movie to be really solid as well in their supporting roles, and able to make this movie way more interesting and way more diabolical. But what I think makes this movie as great as it is director Brandon Cronenberg. He knows exactly what makes a movie so disturbing from the psychological aspect, and it makes a lot of sense because this movie originally had a NC-17 rating at the Sundance Film Festival a couple weeks ago, and they had to edit down to an R-rated film because, well, NC-17 movies are not going to do well at the cinemas. This movie is really violent, it's gory, there's a lot of sex in this movie, and it sometimes really just blew my mind of what I was even watching. But I think what holds this film together is the amazing amount of direction that Cronenberg has for his actors, and the way the scenes feel and the tone. Like his last film in 2020, Possessor, I found this movie dove into the body horror genre, just like his dad, David Cronenberg, has done many times in the past. And while I wouldn't necessarily call it a body horror film, there are still so many elements of it in this movie that involve literal bodies, and I thought the story was really interesting and very creative, and I loved where every single story element went. I found the editing to be sharp in this movie. Like, every single cut just flowed so smoothly, especially in the amazing montage sequences. Even with the more dramatic, dialogue heavy scenes, I found this movie had just a nice, great flow to it. Like, Brandon Cronenberg had all the creative freedom in the world, and it really shows with how smooth this movie is. I also found the score and the cinematography to be top notch, as this has great colors, great lighting, especially when we get to the more creepy acid dream type of scenes. They were truly phenomenal. What I really enjoyed about this movie is what Brandon Cronenberg was trying to say about the lifestyle of the rich, like killing people, which is a very big reference to A Clockwork Orange, if you guys have seen that classic Stanley Kubrick film. This movie does a really good job of not overly explaining things to the audience, and you do have to really pay attention to the characters and the way the shots are put together, and why these shots are the way that they are, because they're telling a lot of the story here. Surprisingly, I actually have a lot of negatives with this film, and the first I want to start off with is the R rating. While I do feel like it is a very hard R type of movie, this movie was meant to be an NC-17 type of film, so I don't feel feel like I'm getting the true version of what Brandon Cronenberg really wanted us to see, and I really hope when they do a 4K Blu-ray that we will get that cut, which I'm sure will happen because we're hearing about it now. And I think this movie is a lot crazier based on people who have seen the NC-17 cut at Sundance Film Festival. And the last negative I have with this movie is probably with some of the characters, as there is a lot of minor characters in this movie, and while the performances are really good, like I said earlier in the video, I found that their presence in this movie didn't really matter all that much, and I would have loved to see this movie become a show or a mini series where we can dive into some of these characters, because there are so many. And then when we do get a glimpse of who some of these characters are and a little bit of their backstory that's subtly explained to another character, you start to get sort of interested. I know for a lot of people they're not going to mind because they only really care about the two main stars of the movie, but I think to be able to be a masterpiece of a film, you got to be able to explore every character that's in the movie for a significant portion of the film. Overall, Infinity Pool was a really disturbing and dark horror film that had a ton of amazing performances from Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth. The writing is really good, and I also really love the technical aspects of it, like the shot selection, the music, and I think that this movie is just what we needed to break that January horror movie curse that the movie industry has. And I definitely would recommend checking this movie out, but definitely try to watch a trailer and see if this is your type of movie, because you may end up walking out of the theater because it wasn't the movie that you expected. I'm giving Infinity Pool a 7 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review. As I want to know below in the comment section, have you heard of this film? Have you seen it? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Before you guys check out this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like as you should, and ring that notification bell so I can see you all in another video.